Will you believe that Jews and Muslims once fought together, side by side, to defend Jerusalem against Christian crusaders? Today, that alliance between Jews and Muslims sounds almost unimaginable. If we look at the modern Middle East and the tensions we see today, the idea of Jews and Muslims fighting together on the same side feels strange, almost unthinkable. But in 1099, during the First Crusade, that is exactly what happened. While Crusader armies were massacring Jewish communities across Europe, in Jerusalem itself, Jewish residents picked up weapons and stood shoulder to shoulder with Muslim defenders to protect their city. This story challenges everything we think we know about the relationship between Jews and Muslims. Today, I'm going to take you back to the summer of 1099 and show you exactly what happened. Jerusalem is one of the most contested cities in human history. Empires rose for it, religions fought for it, entire armies marched across continents just to capture this one city. Historians estimate that hundreds of thousands of people have died for Jerusalem across nearly 3,000 years of conflict. Before Judaism, Christianity, or Islam claimed Jerusalem, the ancient Canaanites lived here, worshipping nature gods. Then came the Israelites. Around 3,000 years ago, King David captured Jerusalem and made it his capital. His son Solomon later built the first temple, the holiest site in Judaism. But Jerusalem never stayed peaceful for long. Around 400 years later, the Babylonians invaded, destroyed the city, and burned the first temple to the ground. The Jewish population was exiled. Yet within 70 years, many returned and rebuilt the city, constructing the Second Temple. That temple stood for nearly 6 centuries, until the Roman Empire crushed a Jewish revolt and destroyed it once again. By then, a new religion had emerged: Christianity. Jerusalem became sacred as the city where Jesus was crucified and, according to Christian belief, resurrected. Then, centuries later, Muslim armies captured Jerusalem. Islam also made the city holy. The Dome of the Rock and Al-Aqsa Mosque transformed Jerusalem into one of the most important cities in the Muslim world. And then came the Crusades. For nearly 200 years, Christian and Muslim armies fought brutal wars over control of Jerusalem. 9 major crusades were launched. Entire kingdoms drained their wealth and manpower for this city. Jerusalem became more than land. It became a symbol. A city people believed was worth dying for. In 1099, Jerusalem was ruled by the Fatimid Caliphate, a Shia Muslim dynasty based in Egypt. The city had a diverse population. Muslims formed the majority, but there was also a significant Jewish community and some Eastern Christians. The Jews living there were considered dhimmis, protected non-Muslims under Islamic rule. They paid a special tax known as jizya, which was taken from non-Muslim communities in exchange for protection by the state and exemption from military service. In return, they were generally allowed to practice their religion, maintain synagogues, run businesses, and live relatively peacefully. This protection under Muslim rule stood in sharp contrast to what was about to come from the Crusaders. In November 1095, 4 years before the Crusaders captured Jerusalem, Pope Urban II delivered a powerful speech at the Council of Clermont in France. He called upon Christians to launch a holy war to recapture Jerusalem from Muslim control. He promised that those who joined would receive forgiveness for all their sins. Across Europe, thousands of knights, peasants, and religious warriors took up the cross, believing they were fighting a sacred mission ordered by God. But as the Crusader armies marched across Europe, tragedy struck. In the Rhineland region of modern-day Germany, radical Crusader groups attacked prosperous Jewish communities in cities like Speyer, Worms, and Mainz. Thousands of Jews were killed in brutal massacres. Many chose martyrdom rather than forced conversion. These events are now known as the Rhineland pogroms of 1096. The Crusaders justified their violence by claiming Jews were enemies of Christ. This hatred traveled with them all the way to the Holy Land. Inside the city, the Fatimid governor Iftikhar al-Dawla prepared for a long siege. The walls were reinforced, wells were secured, and food was stockpiled. Here's the part most people don't know: the Jewish community in Jerusalem decided not to stay neutral. Having heard about the massacres in Europe, they chose to actively support the Muslim defenders. Jewish men fought alongside Muslim soldiers on the walls, helping to repel attacks, throwing stones, and shooting arrows. For nearly 5 weeks, the defenders held firm against repeated Crusader assaults. The summer heat was brutal. The Crusaders suffered from thirst and disease. Then, on July 15, 1099, the Crusaders launched their final attack. Using siege towers and ladders, they finally breached the walls. As chaos erupted, many Jews retreated to their main synagogue, hoping for safety. According to historical accounts, including the Muslim chronicler Ibn al-Qalanisi, the Crusaders set the synagogue on fire, killing everyone inside. What followed was one of the most horrific massacres of the Middle Ages. Contemporary writers described streets flowing with blood up to the knees. Both Muslims and Jews were slaughtered without mercy. Estimates suggest tens of thousands died in the days after the city fell. The Crusaders celebrated their victory and established the Kingdom of Jerusalem, a Christian state that would survive for nearly 90 years. But history would turn once again. In 1187, the legendary Muslim leader Saladin recaptured Jerusalem from the Crusaders. Unlike the events of 1099, Saladin showed remarkable restraint. Most inhabitants were allowed to leave safely, and Jews were later permitted to return and resettle in the city. The contrast between the brutality of 1099 and the relative mercy of 1187 shows how complex medieval history truly was. The alliance between Jews and Muslims during the siege of Jerusalem was not built on deep friendship or shared ideology. It was a pragmatic alliance formed against a common and deadly enemy. And that is what makes this story so important. History is rarely simple. Yesterday's enemies can become allies, and today's allies can become enemies. Many things that seem completely unimaginable in today's world have already happened before in the past. The purpose of this video is not to portray any religion as entirely right or entirely wrong. The goal is to understand that the world does not exist in black and white, it exists in vast gray area filled with shifting alliances, politics, fear, survival, ambition, and power. Again and again, powerful rulers and empires have used the emotions, faith, and sentiments of ordinary people for political influence, territorial expansion, and financial gain. That is why complex conflicts should not be viewed only emotionally, but also rationally. And maybe history also gives us hope for the future, because if unexpected alliances could happen in the past, then unexpected change may also be possible in the future. Maybe one day, peace could finally return to the Middle East after centuries of conflict and bloodshed. What do you think could be the real solution to this long-lasting conflict between these religions and communities? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you want more videos on forgotten history from the Crusades and the medieval world, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Thanks for watching, I'll see you in the next one.